guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you are new. My name is Heather. I'm a homeschooling mom of 3 kids, elementary, middle, and high school age. Today we're going to be continuing our series on budgeting, so let's get started. Okay guys, I hope that you were very successful in going through your financial statements and coming up with your own spend categories, because we're going to need them today as we start our budget. And if you've not seen my last 2 videos, if you're new, first, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. I would definitely recommend going back and watching the other 2 videos that I've done as we started this budgeting series. I will leave links for those in the description box. I do also have a corresponding blog post for this video where I go into more detail for you. That will be in the description box. If you are looking for more help and encouragement, I would love for you to come check out my membership community, where we have a wonderful group of homeschool moms and we talk about everything home and homeschool. That link is also in the description box. Today we're actually going to be putting our budget together, or at least starting our budget. And this video does come at a pretty good time. It's towards the end of the month. So if that's how you budget, if you budget from the first of the month to the end of the month, this will be helpful to you. If you budget mid-month because you get paid mid-month, like a monthly paycheck, you can still utilize these resources and use this system as you start to think about your next budget. So when I started this series, I did talk about how I have used an Excel spreadsheet for budgeting since 1999. I have changed it over the years, but this year I really started to do budgeting on paper instead of an Excel spreadsheet. Now, it took me a little bit of time to figure out that I still like that Excel spreadsheet. I like to be able to put formulas in. I don't want to have to constantly be adding and subtracting numbers, especially if I mistakenly put a wrong number in a calculator and then I have to go back through this whole long line of numbers to get to the right number, or if things don't zero out when they ought to. So I do still use a spreadsheet. But what I have done, instead of only leaving the spreadsheet online, is I now have a monthly planner from Erin Condren. I do have a review and walkthrough of the planner and kind of how I use it. And I will have like a setup video next month if you're interested in seeing that. That is where I do all of my spend tracking, and I actually print out my budget from my Excel spreadsheet on sticker paper and I stick it into my planner for the month. And the reason that I do this is because I like to be able to refer back and forth to it. I want to know what the numbers are, and it's just easier for me to do that if I'm physically writing down spend tracking and keeping track of all of my purchases and highlighting things each month. It's easy for me to go back and forth and to kind of update things periodically, because I have on my budget, I have a budget column and then I have an actual column. So periodically throughout the month, I will write in with a pencil where I'm at. So if we have $1,000 in our grocery budget and we have spent $750 and we have 3 weeks left, well, we're really going to be cutting back on the food. So that just keeps me on track, and that's just how that's how I've always done budgeting. But in the past, I've just gone into the Excel spreadsheet and added the numbers in the actual column, but now I'm doing it with a pencil right in front of me so that I am looking at my spend tracking at the same time. You can do it however you want. You do not have to use a physical planner. I know that a lot of people would not necessarily want to do that. Why would you do that when you can just use an Excel spreadsheet or Google Sheets? For me, the physical act of writing down these purchases is more painful, and I pay more attention because I am saying, oh my gosh, why did I just spend $200 at Target? What did I even purchase? Okay, well, it was actually a lot of soap that we needed and shampoo and hygiene products, so that's okay. It wasn't me spending $200 on decorative items. And if you spend $200 on decorative items, I'm happy for you. That I'm not trying to knock that. Just for me personally, I just want to make sure that I'm keeping track of my spending. And if I go in knowing that I'm supposed to be purchasing X, Y, and Z, I don't come out with also A, B, and C. So that's what I do. And again, I started out the year trying to use a lot of different budget printables. This one is from the Passionate Penny Pincher Home Planner. And originally when I bought the home planner in 2022 for 2023, the reason that I got this was because it did have all of the budget worksheets on here. I have used Dave Ramsey worksheets in the past from the Financial Peace University. I've printed out free printables from Budget Mom. I talked about all of these resources in my first video as well. But as I started to use this, pretty much the first month that I tried to use this, I realized that it wouldn't work for me. And is it because I am such a budget nerd and I've always created my own budget worksheet that is why this didn't work? Perhaps. So something like this may work really well for you, and if it does, great. I will leave links for this planner in the description box for you if you want to check it out. They also have a money planner if you want something just focused on money. I started with this and quickly realized that I just needed to go back to my Excel spreadsheet. I was trying to use something in a physical planner or a physical printout sheet instead of using Excel because I thought it would be easier for me to keep track of things, but it wasn't. Like I said, all of those formulas, again, business major, accountant, give me all of the formulas in Excel. So instead I did go back to my spreadsheet that I created, and I ended up going through and completely redoing it. And I think that that was the biggest help for me because, like I said, I've been using essentially the same spreadsheet since college. And yes, I updated it a few times when I got married, when we started having children, when we started homeschooling, I did adjust it. But because it has been essentially the same budget spreadsheet for 24 years, 23 years, I was not paying close enough attention. So I completely redid my spreadsheet, and that was really, really helpful for me. So I'm going to go through kind of how my spreadsheet is laid out. Again, I will have more examples and information in that corresponding blog post. I'm not going to show you my actual budget. I know that there are a lot of people online that do that. I'm not quite at that point yet. Perhaps maybe in 2024 I will feel better about that, but I'm not there right now. So the way that I have my budget set up is I do have specific categories, and some of those categories correspond to my spend categories. But then there are some categories in my budget that are different from my spend categories, and that may sound confusing. I hope that it doesn't. I hope that this all comes through clearly, but it's what works for me. So let's just start going through it. The first two categories that I have are giving and savings. Those are right up at the top of my budget. So giving would be tithes or offerings or donations to nonprofits or community events, that type of stuff. And then savings obviously is savings. Every financial guru that I have ever listened to always encourages people to pay themselves first. So before you even look at your budget, put the money that you want to put in savings, and then budget off of the remaining amount. And I think that that is a great idea. We are not as good about that as we should be, and that is something that I hope to work on in 2024. Okay, the next category in my budget is housing. And so there are going to be some things from my debt spend category. There are going to be things from my utilities category, all listed here because those are specific places that I am paying bills. So under housing, I have our mortgage, repairs and maintenance. This would be a sinking fund if you have a sinking fund for repairs and maintenance. Again, this is something that a lot of financial gurus will tell you you ought to do. I don't necessarily have sinking funds. I just have one savings account that things come out of as needed for many different things. But you can definitely do sinking funds for that. Then I have electricity, I have cell phone, I have internet, I have oil, and I have pellets. So some of those are for utilities, some are for debt, some are savings associated. So that is just how I have written out my budget. You may have other things that you want to include in housing. I don't. The next thing I have is home and food. And so for this category, I have groceries, which is my grocery spend category. I have household, I have homestead, I have personal, and then I have Izzy, our dog. So that is all home and food related. Those are things that some of them can be adjusted as needed, but they are pretty much things that need to be spent every month. Household, things like toilet paper and cleaning supplies, you may not have to buy those every single month, but pretty regularly. Now, some of the other things that I keep track of in that household category, like decorative items, don't necessarily need to be spent each month. So, you can adjust your budget as you need to in the different categories. The next thing I have is transportation, which is gas, repairs and oil, taxes and registration, and car insurance. Then I have recreation, which is eating out, which is the eating out category. Entertainment is the entertainment category. Vacation fund is a savings fund. And then miscellaneous recreation is just other random things that come up that maybe aren't necessarily part of the entertainment category. There have been random things that I just didn't know how to categorize, and that's where I would put that. Then I have a miscellaneous category, and this is where I have life insurance, subscriptions, homeschool, wellness, clothes, medical, kids miscellaneous, and holiday. And those are all categories that I talked about last week in my spend tracking categories. Subscriptions obviously is part of entertainment, but I have it separated out because some of the subscriptions are homeschool related and some are entertainment. And so that's why I have a subscriptions category on my budget, but subscriptions in general are either under entertainment or homeschool. So I know that that's a little bit odd, but that's a personal thing for me specifically that most other budget systems will not have. Then, homeschool, obviously, wellness, clothes, medical, kids miscellaneous, holidays, those are all actual categories on my spend tracking. And then the final category that I have on my budget is debt. That is a category that I have on my spend tracking, but it isn't going to include my mortgage because my mortgage is under housing. And if you have a car payment, you could potentially put it under the cars or transportation category, but I would put it under debt. The same thing with student loans, I would put there. But if it's a medical bill, I would put it in the medical category under miscellaneous. And if it is something like braces that I'm paying one particular person over many months, I'm going to put it in the debt category. So if it's a medical bill of $50 because you had to take your kid to urgent care on the weekend, I'm going to put that in the medical category. But if it is a bill because you had a baby and you now owe $5,000 to the hospital, that's going to go under the debt category. So it really just depends if it's more of like a monthly expense or if it's going to be spread out over many months where I put that, if it's in debt or medical or whatnot. So that's how I have set up my budget categories and how I've kind of integrated them into my budget worksheet. So it looks a little bit different than my actual spend categories. And I mentioned a few of those things, like subscriptions is a little bit different. Things like mortgage goes under housing instead of under debt for me on my budget. And that's just how I have set it up. You can set up your budget however you want. The next thing that I do with my budget is I need to know how much income I'm going to be bringing in over the next month. If you work a normal job where you get a paycheck weekly or twice a month or monthly, that's what you're going to use as your income. If you have a regular income, it's going to be a little bit more challenging for you to come up with what your monthly income is. Now, if you are really on top of things and know, okay, during these 3 months, this is what I normally make, so I will budget off of that. During these 3 months, I make significantly less. During these 3 months, I make significantly more. Typically, a regular income is seasonal, and so you may recognize when you're going to have more or less money. But if you have no idea, I would look at your lowest month over the past 12 months. What is the lowest income that you have received? And I would budget off of that. And then as you're paying attention to things going forward, you will start to recognize which months are higher income months and which ones are on the low side. So you perhaps can make adjustments in your work to increase your income to a more steady level, or just accept that seasonally you have different income. You know, if you own a construction business, you're going to have a lot more business in the summer and fall and much less in the winter. And so you kind of have to budget that way. But I'm going to mainly talk about budgeting from a steady paycheck, just because that is what we use. And so that is my experience. But if you are interested in hearing more about a regular income, I can definitely chat with you about that. Just shoot me an email and we can chat about that. So you are going to want to see your income. What are you bringing in each month? And that's how you're going to budget. You're going to take the normal income that you receive each month and you're going to parcel it out into the different categories. Now, you're going to want to start with the things that you need to pay first, which are your housing, your groceries, your transportation, your debt. All of those things need to be accounted for first. Your utilities, the things that you pay every month regularly and are about the same, that's where you're going to want to start. It's easy to put, you know, your mortgage payment in and your car payment in and your student loan payment in, but then it's a little bit more challenging to put in things like groceries, which is why I wanted you to go over your financial statements and have a good understanding of how much you actually spend in a month on those particular spend categories so that you are able to put a realistic number in your budget. It doesn't mean that it can't change over the next several months. It's just your starting point, and you have to start at a place that is realistic. Otherwise, your budget is going to be busted before you even start the month. So what I want you to do is just go through and write down all of the normal expenses that you have. If your electric bill is the same each month, put the same number. If it varies, try and look and see either what the average is, or for my electric company, we can see the last 12 months of usage. So I can see, okay, well, I'm going to spend a lot more in July because we're running the air conditioner all day for our dog, and that boosts the electricity immensely. But in the winter, I don't use the electricity, but we have our twinkle lights on in the house, and those surprisingly also use a lot of electricity. So, you know, just different months are going to have different bills. And so recognizing what you typically pay in a month is very important. Again, that's why I'm saying print out the last year's worth of financial statements if you have access to them. That will be very helpful as you think about your budget and you plan for what you're going to spend next year. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to go through and put in numbers in all of those different budget categories that you have. And the thing that I do and that I would recommend is zero-based budgeting. And essentially that means that for every dollar that you take in, you give it a name of where it's going to go. Now, you may go through your budget and notice that you have a lot left over. That is awesome. Where is it going to go? Is it all going to go to savings? Are you going to take some and invest it? Are you going to take some and put it in a particular savings account? Perhaps you're saving for a vacation, or you know that you have car insurance coming up in a couple of months, and so you want to set that aside so that it's not such a huge hit when you get that car insurance bill. So that's kind of how you're going to roll through this. If you set up your budget and you are way over what your income is, or even slightly over what your income is, you're going to have to go back through your categories and see where you can make cuts. And the places that are typically easy to make cuts, incidental purchases, it's going to be things that maybe subscriptions that you have that maybe you need to cancel for a few months. That's when you're going to have to start making some decisions about where you're spending your money. But hopefully, as you set up your budget, you will see that you do have income left over at the end of the month that can go to savings. And then what you're going to want to do, if you do have income at the end of the month, you're going to want to pay yourself first, have that money go straight to savings instead of staying in your checking account as money that is just available to you, because again, like I've said in the last couple of videos, it's very easy for money to just float away without noticing it. And that's really sad, but it is a true statement. When you check your bank account and you say, oh, I still have a couple $100, I can go and buy coffee. And then you go to a bagel shop, and then you go and grab a drink with a friend, and then all that money is gone. And it may have been well spent, but planning to spend it ahead of time is much better. Now, you will notice that I don't have like a fun money category or a free spend category or anything like that. My husband and I don't really do that. It's not that we don't have any fun, but but we don't really spend, we don't have like my money and his money that he just spends on random things. We're not really spenders in that way. Most of the things that we do are either together and they would be under entertainment, or we may make a decision to just pull some money out of savings to do something fun as well. And I don't have a problem with that. So I hope that this video was helpful for you. I know it's kind of a quick overview of budgeting, and I probably will go through this much more in depth in my membership community if you're interested in coming and checking that out. Like I said, I'm just not comfortable sharing all of those numbers on the public sphere at this point, but I do have that blog post as well that will go into a lot more detail and have information that you can download to help you set up your budget. But I really would encourage you to think about this and make it a priority as you go into 2024. As homeschoolers, we definitely have to cut back on a lot of things. You don't necessarily have to. If you are doing great financially, then you're probably not really interested in this video to begin with. But if you are what I would qualify as like a typical homeschool family, you have one parent working and one parent staying home with the kids. And that is going to be a challenge in this economy. This economy is not built for single income families. It's built for two income families, which is really unfortunate. And having to make difficult choices in order to be able to be home with our kids and manage their educations and teach them it's hard, So we want to make sure that our kids have what they need. We want to make sure that we have what we need. And oftentimes on a single income budget, it can be challenging to make sure that we can get all of those things. So definitely look through your finances again. Definitely drill down on those spend categories. See which things are the most important for you. That's very, very important. I want you to make sure that you're not setting up a budget because I suggested something. I want you to think about your family, your specific needs, and make sure that you are handling those things first. You may not do any sort of homesteading type things. You don't need a homesteading category. You don't can and you don't preserve food and you don't do chickens. That is totally fine. Don't put a homestead category if you don't need it. But if you are considering that, think about those things. Think about those extra purchases. If you do a lot of canning, you have to realize that you have to buy new canning lids every year. Or, you may recognize that your rings are starting to rust, which I noticed mine were this year when I was canning apple jelly. And so I needed to make sure that I had rings. The same thing with jars. You know, if they chip, you can't use them for canning. And so making sure that you have an understanding of, okay, in September, these are the things that I'm going to be preserving. I need to make sure that I have these things available to me and getting them in advance, because oftentimes now, at least in my area, it's hard to find specific things. And I thought that that would change after COVID was kind of done, but it hasn't. And so I need to recognize where I need to purchase things well in advance. Things like homeschool curriculum. I purchase homeschool curriculum very, very early in the year, usually March, April. And this year I did not get all of my homeschool curriculum until August because it was back ordered. And so because I start school in July, that can be a problem. So you need to kind of think about those things in advance. Does everything have to be planned? No. Can you have some fun? Yes. But having a good understanding of where your money is going, what you're spending your money on, where you can make adjustments if you're having a struggle month or some extra expenses pop up that you weren't anticipating, that is very important. But part of going through our financial statements, looking at these spend categories and having a good understanding of our entire financial picture is so that there are fewer months when things just come up that you weren't expecting. So for instance, you know, last year we had to buy a new vehicle, and had we been planning for that right along, we would have had a better strategy to purchase a vehicle than, oh my gosh, we need a vehicle today and there isn't one available. What are we going to do? Anticipating some of the problems that come up. Life is full of problems. There's always something. You know, you might be chugging along thinking you're doing so well, and then out of nowhere a deer hits you in the car. So I mean, it's just, there are so many different things that can happen throughout life, and doing as much as we can ahead of time to prepare for those things is helpful, and it helps us to not be stressed. And sometimes being a single income household, it can be very stressful, especially again, in this economy. It's been very challenging. So preparing and paying attention are two things that don't cost me any money and are very helpful to my family. So I would encourage you to just take some time to work on this. Now, I am going to be doing a full budget planner setup in December. I will share that with you and how I do my reporting at the end of each month. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this was helpful for you. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Again, if you have questions, please reach out to me. I love talking about money and budgeting and savings and how to make better decisions with money. It's something that I've always really enjoyed. I have made a lot of sacrifices over the years to make sure that I can stay home. We've done a lot of different things over the years. We've had some incredibly stressful struggle years when expenses were extremely high. We had a lot of debt. We didn't have a lot of income. And the choices that we made were very outside the norm to make sure that we could move forward and make sure that we were paying the bills and putting food on the table for our family. So I do love sharing about that kind of stuff. It's just never been something that I've talked about much on YouTube. But if you're interested, or you just need somebody to listen to what is going on with your own life, please feel free to email me. I love to hear from my community so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks, guys. Bye.